Okay, Dr. Mindy here with my weekly Q&A, and I'm coming to you guys a little bit earlier today, and it's fast training week. So the purpose of today's Q&A is really to help answer some of your questions around fasting, especially those of you that are in fast training week with us. If you're not familiar with fast training week, we do it once a month, and we do it for 5 days. It's always a Monday through a Friday, and we have two places you can follow us. One is in our closed Facebook group called the Resetter Collaborative, and one is here on YouTube. So hopefully you guys we have so many of you that are like fully engaged in these fasting weeks. So hopefully you guys are doing great and getting a lot of good results. This week, we basically gave you two different types of fast you could do. One was the 3-day to 5-day water fast. So I'm curious if you guys are doing it. Let me know. I always get excited for people when they go to do those longer fasts. And then the other one was 1 meal a day. And what we realized is that a lot of people love having recipes. So let us know if you're one of those people. That I will tell you that recipes isn't necessarily my expertise, although my husband and I love cooking, but creating recipes and writing them all out is not necessarily my passion. But we have been blessed to align ourselves with some really authentic and heart-based people that are on a mission and love writing recipes. So Anna Vicino was one of them. So if you guys are doing her recipes, I know last night we did the chicken dish and I love it. We did it for the second time. So if any of the recipes that you guys got this week and you're loving, let us know so that the community can hear, and we'll pass it along to everybody if there was a really good one. If you didn't get Anna's recipes, just put in the comments, just put recipes, and my team will send you the link on how to get that. So let me give you a couple other updates. I just launched a really interesting podcast with Hannah Botheus, and she is a type 1 diabetic who has used low-carb living to really control the symptoms of her type 1 diabetes. Used a little bit of fasting, not a ton, but she's definitely used the concept of keeping her blood sugar low to really help not just manage her blood sugar and insulin, but also to just the overall symptoms that she has. So really interesting interview. It's on the Resetter podcast, so please go listen to that. You can find it on iTunes. If you like the episode, leave a review. That way other people know it was good. But I really most importantly want to make sure that you guys get access to that. If you're not a type 1, there's still, oh my gosh, I learned so much in interviewing her about managing blood sugar. So if you're struggling with your blood sugar, this is a great episode to watch. If you have type 1 diabetes, it's also a great episode. And you'll just resonate with what she's saying. So the second thing I'll tell you is I'm putting out, one video has already been put out here on YouTube and one tomorrow. I can't wait for you guys. I almost don't want to say it because I found some really good research on an ingredient that we need to all be avoiding that is making us more vulnerable to the coronavirus. So that's coming out tomorrow, but on Tuesday I put out a video on ancient grains. So a lot of you guys had really great comments. You really loved it. And I just want to point out that what I really want to get you guys thinking is that there is a fasting lifestyle that you can incorporate all the different 7 fasts. And then when you eat, I really want you eating good quality food because food is medicine. Just like fasting is medicine, food is medicine. So I don't want you to get caught in this obsession with fasting that has you not looking at the quality of your food. So that's why I put out the ancient grains videos. I was like, is there a time we should, be looking at grains? And so then I went down and showed you all the science on that. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure that you go look at it. And then tomorrow's video is going to spark a lot of conversation, and I'm going to have a follow-up video to it that will help clarify some things too. So I love putting things in parts. So, okay, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you guys are fasting with us this week and you have any questions about fasting, I'm here to answer them for you. Let us know where you are in the world. We have so many of you guys that are worldwide. So
great. Let's see. First question, I think Debbie already answered this about what breaks it. They want to know about matcha tea.
What breaks a fast?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about tea for a second. I think I've done it on a Q&A call, but it's worth repeating that some teas can actually lower your blood sugar. So like there was a study done that countries that eat more or drink more black tea have less cases of type 2 diabetes. And usually it's when they're drinking the black tea after a meal that it brings the blood sugar down. So you just got to test it. I believe that, and I did a video on what to drink while you're fasting, so go watch that, because this idea around tea has me thinking things a little different. And I will tell you that the biggest thing to think of in what breaks a fast is anything that elevates your blood sugar. So if you drink matcha tea and the blood sugar goes down, it's working for you, or it stays the same. But if it goes up, it's not. So
okay. Good. And Debbie pointed to, I think, some of your other videos about that.
Okay.
Willard is having a really hard time. It sounds like he's done fasting before, but this time he couldn't even do OMAD. You want to talk about how...
About when you do well with fasting and then all of a sudden you don't.
Yeah,
And Willard asked this. Yeah. Okay. So, and the reason I clarify that is for men, let me go through the different steps on this thought. If you're a great faster and all of a sudden you become a bad faster, usually that can be, the first thing I would think of is, are you under more stress? If you're under more stress right now, stress can make fasting very difficult. Remember that fasting will raise your cortisol temporarily. So if your cortisol is already high, just make sure that this may not be the right time for you to fast. So understand that. Second thing I'll say is that, what are you eating when you are eating? So one of the things we see is that people have better success going into fasts if they've kept their blood sugar more stable, and then they go into a fast, as opposed to, I'm going to fast tomorrow, I'm going to eat whatever the heck I want today. So if you go low carb, high fat, and you go into a fast like that, your blood sugar is already more steady, you'll have a better result. Third thing is, how long have you been fasting? So remember, the name of the game here is to get you metabolically flexible so that you can click in and out of these fasts very effortlessly. So if you're new to fasting and you had one great fasting experience, but then you didn't have, all of a sudden you didn't have another, the next experience was horrible, it might be that you're just not completely metabolically flexible yet. And then for women, you're going to find that fasting is really difficult around the week before your cycle. And so that would be my last little piece. But I did do a checklist of what do you do if you're not succeeding you're not getting the results you want with fasting. So that video came out last week. So watch that. So I walk through all the different things to think about. So
great. And Ashley has a question about fueling yourself, is the way Ashley termed it, but taking electrolytes during a fast. Yeah,
electrolytes, as long as there's no or no artificial sweeteners in it. So just make sure it's a clean electrolyte. So no artificial sweeteners, no sweeteners at all, or sugar at all. It needs to be, really deficient of that. Like if it's just water, like I know I can go to my local Whole Foods and I can get water with electrolytes added into it, and there's nothing that it's sweetened with, natural or fake. So make sure it's not like Gatorade Zero. Like that would be not the smart thing to drink during a fast. But otherwise, that's really something that we see happen often, where you have a mineral deficiency and you go into a fast and all of a sudden that deficiency reveals itself. So I think it's smart. I think it's a good idea. Definitely.
Got a lot of people doing water fast. Ian's he's in Melbourne, Florida, and is on day 4.
Day 4.
Water fast.
Good job, Ian. Day 4 can be good. I'm curious if it's good. That's usually when I start to get the fasting high.
And Brooke has a question about frequency of fasting.
Great.
2 to 3 day water fast every week on top of OMAD.
Oh, that's a lot of fasting. Okay, so Brooke has a question about frequency of fasting. 2 to 3 day water fast every week on top of, the other days she's doing OMAD. I have done that routine with patients before, and I've done it with patients who have cancer and are like trying to overcome a serious diagnosis. If you have a chronic serious diagnosis like that, it can be really great, and you should be working with a practitioner just to make sure you haven't overdone fasting. If you're just doing it to lose weight or for health prevention or preventing a disease, let's start with the weight loss. If you're doing it to lose weight, that level of fasting is actually going to catch up with you. So you need to do some feast days. You need to come out of fasting. Remember that we're made for feast famine cycling. We're not made for, famine cycling all the time. That we're not meant to be in that famine state all the time. So we're meant for feast famine cycling. So you got to feast sometimes, or it is going to catch up with you. Your results will become less profound. You might tank your hormones. So I caution you on that. I like 3-day water fasts, once a quarter for people. Some of my patients with autoimmune conditions really like it once a month. But every week would be the only time I would recommend that is if you're like a cancer patient. That was the one where we saw great success with it. But those are kind of the cautionary things, is you can overfast and you all of a sudden get into this broken, the body is in so much deprivation, and now fasting's not a tool for you. You got to step out and feast for a couple of months and then go back. But if you're smart ahead of time and realize that there needs to be feast days, there needs to be days to step out, now you can have it all. So,
great.
Hope that helps.
Dr. Raul Kamut.
Okay.
Raul, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, is doing OMAD. So good job.
Okay.
A lot of different people, they're doing the different programs. I like it. We're all doing it together.
Yeah. I personally love OMAD. It's so time efficient. And when you sit down to eat your one meal, there's just so much appreciation for the meal. So I really like OMAD. I've caught myself, I don't know about you guys, but I've caught myself some days at 1 or 2 going, well, maybe I should eat today. I'll have lunch, and then I get lunch, and I find myself I'm less productive in the afternoon. Whereas, if I do OMAD and my meal is dinner, I'm super productive during the day.
Kath just is finishing their fast today, 90 hours. Great job.
Okay.
Using your 3 steps on how to come out of the fast.
Awesome.
So, and they want to do their workout on Saturday. When should they protein load?
Yeah, so let's talk about coming out of a fast. So this is perfect conversation for those of you that are doing the fat water fasting this week. I did a video on, there's a 4-step process that I have to come out of a fast. So make sure you see that video. The biggest thing to remember is that if you've gone 3 days or longer, your body's ability to break down protein is going to be a little rough. So you don't want to jump into the first time I did a 3-day water fast, I broke it with eggs. Not a good idea. My stomach hurt, and I usually do great with eggs. I was sleepy, and I think my body was like, whoa, we haven't eaten anything for 3 days, and now we got to break down eggs. So protein is the big thing that you want to look at and make sure that you don't launch into that 24 hours after the fast. So then after about 24 hours, you could do protein no problem. And that would be a good time to work out. I think the question that she had was, well, when can I work out? When can I start protein loading? The day you break the fast, still be gentle with yourself. Still understand that the body and mind is going to love that you're adding some food in, but I wouldn't go and do a hard workout. The next day, you'd be fine. You could do a protein load day. You could go do a hard workout. You'd probably feel really good. And now you actually are going to, because you've been in this state of autophagy where everything has been in this depletion phase. Now you're moving in 24 hours after your fast into mTOR. And the body's going to go, whoa, we get to move into growth phase. And I think it's a beautiful way to build muscle. So you could start protein loading on that day, on that second day, and see how it goes. And see if you start getting more muscle. And then give us feedback, because I love watching these principles work, especially with people that are take great care in their workouts. So.
This is an interesting question. I don't think we've talked about this that much. Sarah says that she's read that we shouldn't use fasting as a punishment for eating poorly.
Mindset.
But also said that fasting makes feasting okay. So what do you have any advice?
Was there a question, or it's more of a statement?
What is your advice on the mentality related to those two things?
Yeah, so we shouldn't use, the comment was we shouldn't use fasting as a punishment for poor eating. And what was the second part of that?
The fasting and feasting, like making it cycle. Where do you look at that?
Okay, so let's talk about the mentality of fasting for a moment. The way that I look at it is I have a fasting window and I have a eating window. And I always am asking myself, how long do I need to go for my fasting window today? And in that fasting window is a gift for me. There is going to be an anti-inflammatory gift. There's going to be ketones that are going to be neuroprotective for my brain. There's going to be GABA production. I'm resetting my dopamine receptor sites. So it's not, to me, fasting is a gift. It's not something you do when you've been eating poorly and now you need to punish yourself. I actually never see fasting as punishment. I see fasting as something I step into so that I can heal my body in a way that no supplement can, no drug can, no doctor can. Like, it's tapping into this incredible intelligence, and it is a gift. Now, when I go into my eating window, I ask myself, like, what is it that my body needs? What do I need to nourish myself? And I think this is a really important topic, because we often let our taste buds determine what we eat. And yet, if you can just pause for a moment and say, what does my body need? Not my taste buds. What does my body feel like it needs? This is why I did the grains. Is there ever a good time to eat grains? Because there's some really healing benefit to grains. And if you slow down and you take a lot of the judgment out of food that we have, and I need to do this, I don't need to do that, you can see that food can heal too. And so what I do with the feast famine cycling is I just ask myself every day, what is it that I need? Some days I feel like I need more protein. Some days I feel like I need more carbs. Some days I don't want to eat. But you just have to check in with the body. And I know this might be sounding weird if you've never done that before, but it's almost to get out of the head and just take a moment and just check in with the body. Like, what is it that my body needs today? And you might have set out to fast that day, and you might be like, get to like noon and go, my body doesn't need this, I need to eat. But that feast famine cycling is really around getting into more in tune with what your body needs. There was something I heard recently called intuitive eating. And I thought, yeah, that's feast famine cycling. And if you start to listen, you'll see that sometimes you need fasting and sometimes you need feasting. But the one piece that I'm going to come in strong for you guys on here is the quality of ingredients matter. Like, I am like right now in the way that this whole coronavirus thing is unwinding across the world, but especially here in America, I am just appalled that we are not talking about the fact that we have a world and a country that has been eating crappy food that has been given to us by the food industry. The food we're eating today is horrific. And it's not acceptable anymore, and we need to hold these food companies accountable for it. So read ingredients, go to your farmer's market, grow a garden. Like, don't be scared of food, be scared of crappy fake food with fake ingredients. And when you tap into like the food that nature has given you, you're not going to gain weight, you're not going to build disease, and you combine that with the fasting principles, and now your whole relationship to food changes. So that's why I love the variation in the feast-famine cycling.
Okay, well, this sort of is, this is maybe might make some people uncomfortable, but somebody had a question, Olga, about Beyond, which is like Beyond Meat products. I guess they have a bone broth. Would that be okay during a fast? Do you want to talk about those fake meat products?
Oh, is it a fake meat product? Yeah.
Yeah, and how engineered they are?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the Beyond product. It's a fake bone broth.
Right. Beyond Meat is one of the brands.
Oh, Beyond Meat.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that kind of goes back to if it's pretend meat, what is it? So I don't really, anything that's fake, I don't like. So I would make sure it doesn't have chemicals, because the whole point of fasting is to undo the damage chemicals have created. So you don't want to be adding chemicals in. Now, bone broth itself is very healing. So I like to use bone broth, and you can see this in my video where I talk about the 4 steps of breaking a fast. I think bone broth is awesome to use to break a fast. And your body can take it in a little bit better than just like obviously a steak or something like that. So it's healing to the gut. It has a lot of amino acids in it. I love bone broth. If you do it during a fast and thinking that you're still fasting, it gets a little tricky there, because it can raise your blood sugar and it can pull you out of a fasted state. So you do have to realize when you go for bone broth, if you're doing it in like a 3-day fast, it's actually harder because your blood sugar never gets down enough, your ketones don't get high enough. So it's very difficult to get into that really like euphoric place of fasting, because your blood sugar will never drop. But for breaking a fast, it's awesome. And fake bone broth, I would stay away from.
Great. Okay, this is the last one. Ian has a good question about, he asked an earlier question too. He's exploring keto.
Okay.
And he recognizes the reducing carbs, but he's starting to wonder about fiber and gut health. And you want to talk a little bit about what ketobiotic is.
Yeah, so let's talk about, it's funny because I got interviewed on a podcast yesterday with a fitness expert. And she didn't really know much about fasting, didn't know much about the keto diet, and had a lot of apprehension about it because of some of the negative things she had heard. Like one of which is, how does going without vegetables in a ketogenic state, like why is that beneficial? So the first thing I'll say is that understand with ketones, there's 2 ways to get ketones: fasting and bring your carbs down and bring your protein down. So, and up your fat. So a lot of times what people do is they get so restricted in their carbs that they start to not look at vegetables. And I call this low keto. The reason I like this idea of ketobiotic is because what we say is 50 grams of net carbs. This, in a ketobiotic living, most of your carbs should be coming from vegetables. And that will bring you to that 50 gram place. And those vegetables in turn are going to help feed the good bacteria in your gut. Now, you will see in a video that I'm doing next week on sugar cravings. And it's so fascinating, the research we're finding right now about our taste buds. We have receptors for the sweet and bitter in our mouth that are controlled by the bacteria in your gut. And so one study I found was showing that the less diverse your gut bacteria, the more you craved carbs and the more you triggered these sweet receptor sites. So now somebody comes to keto and they're like, well, I'm gonna stay 10 grams, 20 grams, there's no room for vegetables. Now they're not feeding their gut bacteria, and long term, their gut bacteria is gonna die, and they're gonna have less diversity, and they're gonna set themselves up for more cravings. They're not gonna have those gut bacteria to help with neurotransmitter production and serotonin and dopamine, GABA, like all the things that keep the mind healthy. So, Ian, if you're new to keto, my biggest warning is like, you're right. Like we got to think about the microbiome. Like let's not forget that vegetables, specifically greens, which are raw greens, salads they're not going to raise your carb level too high, and they're going to feed the gut bacteria. They're going to make your keto efforts so much easier because they're not changing the receptor sites in your taste buds. You're going to feel calmer. Like it's like keto is so good. And we got to remember some principles so that we don't fall into a path where now we're saying keto has hurt us. And then, this is what you see in the news media. About a year ago, it's like keto was so popular, and then they came out and they're like, keto isn't good for women, and keto's dangerous. Keto's going to raise your cholesterol. And it's like, okay, let's look at the little nuances here that need to happen with keto so all of that doesn't happen. So great question. I don't want people to lose sight of how great keto is. And I don't necessarily want you to just fit in your skinny jeans and love the scale, but have all the other parts of your health go awry because you were so strict with keto. So there's my passionate plea. So, okay, you guys, you're awesome. Every Thursday I come here for Q&As. If I can hang in a little bit longer, then I will. Today I had an appointment, which is why we rearranged this time. But if you have questions, leave them in the comments here, and my team will make sure to answer them. If you want to join us in our next metabolic experience, that's going to be happening. We're starting another one in July where we take you through a bunch of different fasting, bunch of different keto variations, and it's centered around losing weight. So the weight loss, it's a 15-day experience, and the weight loss is insane. So one of the most fun events we do, and we do it every couple of months. So we're doing another one in July. Just put Metabolic Reset in the comments, and my team will send you a link. So don't give up on yourself. You're a miracle. And as always, I hope that helps.